Welcome back to the county seat. We are going to continue our conversation about jails and jail funding, and returning to the panel, of course, is Commissioner Jim Erdley from Washington County, and joining us are two members of the state legislature, Representative Paul Ray from Davis County and Representative Mike Noel from various counties. I mean, you have about the biggest eight counties in one district. How long does it take you to wear out a car, Mike?
I was just talking about that today. I've put 187,000 miles on my car in the last 4 years, so that's quite a few miles. And my first car I started with, I've got 265,000, so I'm going about 30,000-40,000 a year.
That's a fair amount of driving.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the issue of jail funding. In the story, I think people now understand that there are two rates. There's a contract rate for people that come out of corrections, and there's a reimbursement rate for people who are reimbursed or sentenced directly to county jails. So you were pointing out to me that actually, since we taped that interview with Sheriff Smith, the rate has dropped even further. Is that correct?
Yeah, that whole process is based on available funding, and that amount of resource continues to decline. Currently today, it's $15.90 per inmate. At least it is in Washington County, and I'm sure it is the same across the whole state.
The same.
Yeah.
How does the fund get so low, Mike?
Well, what's happened is that there's a disconnect between the condition of probation prisoners. Those are state prisoners that are housed, would be housed in the state Department of Corrections under their purview, but a judge, as it was said in your introduction there, has sentenced them to a county jail under a condition of probation. So they might be there a year, sometimes they're there even longer. They're essentially a state prisoner, so the state should be paying for these prisoners. What happens is once they go to those county facilities, the legislature does not fund them. They do not appropriate the money. So it kind of comes down to the end of the session each year, and this has happened to me for all the 8 years I've been there, and Representative Ray knows this because he's been in law enforcement, judiciary, he knows what's going on. And if there's any money left over, they kind of hand a pool to the county and say, well, guys, here's all we've got, and divvy it up. So you're ending up with what they should be paying, $40 a day, and they're paying $15.90 a day. Well, who picks that up? The local counties do, and it's hard on the taxpayer. It's not right. It's a system that is broken and needs to be fixed. We've run a couple of bills on it. We're able to get it through the legislature, through the House. It usually gets through the House, gets stopped in the Senate. They stop it in the Senate, and there's some issues there that people don't understand the whole theory. Maybe Representative Ray can talk about that and why one particular senator decided that that the counties took on this responsibility. I don't believe that's true, but maybe Paul could talk about it. You've been there longer than me.
Well, what happened is back when this whole system came about, the counties were funding the courts, and so the state came and said, we'll fund the courts, we'll take over the court system, you do the jail part, we'll give you a reimbursement. Now, the original agreement, from what I can make, was about 50%. We'll fund up to 50% of the cost, of that, and we're 16%, I believe, we're funding well below the 50%. So there obviously is a need for the state to kick in and take care of the original agreement that it had when that was moved. The courts were moved over to the states, and the county was going to take over the prisoners.
Okay. What about a dedicated fund? Now, we don't have a lot of time, Jim, but I've heard that there is a potential beer tax that might help fund this?
That's part of the discussion. We were called together here a few months ago by the governor and given a task, some of us from the counties, from the legislature, given the task of identifying a revenue stream that could be used to fund this COP inmate situation. The amount of money needed is $15 million, as you said. And we came up with this beer tax. We looked at where is there a nexus between cause and effect? Why are folks in jail, and how, why shouldn't they pick up the tab, the cause, and the cause has been alcohol associated with drugs and other things. But the beer tax, 5 cents per 12 ounces of sold beer will generate $15.6 million statewide.
So what you're saying is it ends up kind of being like a user's fee then?
It's sort of like that, yeah. It seems to be a fair and appropriate way to go, and it provides the resources necessary to take care of this issue with the counties.
Well, we'll be interested to see actually if this makes any traction in the legislature. And geez, I just wish we had more time to talk, but we continually seem to run short. There are so many topics. Hopefully you can come back and address this again as we get into the legislative session. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of The County Seat. We'll be back with another episode next week. Sure.
Sure.